back to another podcast of Simply Medicare. I'm your host, Debbie Straub, your Michigan Medicare specialist, and I am so excited about bringing on this new guest. Jim Speir and I have known each other since, I don't know, 2010, something like that, when I was, green behind the ears and didn't really know what I was doing. And it really has been a mentor of mine for all of these years. And I'm really excited to introduce you to Jim and what he does and how he really has made a huge difference in the senior market. As you know, we mostly focus on Medicare, so most of our clients are 65 and older. Some are under 65, but most are over 65. And trying to navigate Medicare on their own is overwhelming as it is, let alone trying to navigate the financial market. So Jim's going to come on and talk to us a little bit about that. But most importantly, Jim, tell us who you are and tell us about your family. And I'm just so excited to hear about it. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Debbie. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for bringing me on to your podcast. It's great to see where you started and where you're at today and how successful you've become. So I'm very proud of you. Very, very proud.
Thank you.
As Deb mentioned, I've been in the financial services industry for about 22 years now. I didn't start in the financial services industry though. I grew up in the Metro Detroit area. I went to Central Michigan University, have degrees in psychology and sociology there, and I went to master's program at Wayne State University. Pursued a master's in social work and worked in the mental health field for about 17 years. Matter of fact, I'm still licensed as a social worker. I keep my license current. But I think, I worked in mental health. I was a psychotherapist. I worked in psychiatric hospitals. Then I became an administrator over mental health programs and clinics. And then decided, based on what was happening in my family life and how little time I was spending with my two little guys at the time, that I needed to make an adjustment so that I didn't have to be an absent father. I happened upon this particular industry, and what was really excellent about it is I was able to still help people in a different manner, in relation to, financial planning, insurance, and so forth. So as Debbie mentioned, I'm in financial services. I'm in the wealth management, retirement, financial planning business. I'm an investment advisor representative, which means I am a fiduciary to my clients, which is really the highest standard for a financial advisor. I'm also licensed in all aspects of insurance, like life insurance, long-term care, and so forth. I'm also independent, so that means I don't necessarily work for one of the big box companies, encourage to sell proprietary products or anything like that. I really get to pick and choose, really what makes the most sense for my clients.
I think there's so many things that I want to talk about based on what you said, but I think being independent is super important. And when I hear the word independent, I know what you're talking about, but I think there's a lot of people out there that might not understand what that means. And when I talk about being independent, and I'm sure you can help us to understand it more, is when you work for a specific company, let's just say you work at a bank, you can only talk about products that your bank offers, and that's it. But what if some of those products aren't perfect for me? That's all we can talk about. So in my mind, I think it's really important that they work with someone such as yourself, who is independent, who can look at a wide variety of products from a wide variety of companies. Is that how you feel?
Absolutely. My mentor that brought me into the business believed in, being independent and really having a wealth of, different types of programs, insurance products, things of that nature for your client. Instead of saying, okay, I work for company ABC and that's all the products that we have. where I may be licensed with 40 different companies and get to pick the best, whether it's the best, life insurance policy, whatever, for that particular individual. So yes, there definitely is a value in that. Not that there's anything wrong with anybody else that's working in the industry. It's just a matter of personal preference in terms of what I want available to my clients.
Right. And I want to touch on you being a therapist, because that to me is just one of the many things that sets you apart. You were a therapist and still are for many, many years. That's what you went to school with. That's how you started out in your career. And that's really what you saw yourself doing long term. And then you found out that it was really just taking up so much of your life that it was pulling you away from your family. And then you decided to go in a different direction. But what I think makes you unique is you're still a therapist and you still hold that license. And I see you bringing that compassion with you when you're sitting down with your clients. And I think that's just one of the things that makes you very unique. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, Deb. I just want to qualify one thing. When my clients see me, I'm not their therapist.
No, you're not their therapist, but you
No,
are a therapist. So
no,
you listen to them in a different way than perhaps other financial advisors might.
that could be true. I mean, I don't practice as a psychotherapist or anything like that anymore, and I don't want my client, any future client that, hey, I don't want that guy analyzing me.
Yeah.
But that being said, some of my training has been very helpful in terms of sitting with folks. I probably do more listening than I do talking, and which is of value because I really want to hear really what's going on with my clients, what's going on in their life, what their goals and objectives are. All of us have a history, have our own personal history in relation to, let's just say, money, right? Everybody was raised differently. Everybody has different feelings about money that impact how you save, how you spend, those types of things. Those things are important, but there's also family dynamics. There's a relationship that you may have with your spouse, and you may have competing ways of that, how you grew up about visioning money and how you use it and debt and all of that type of thing. That has to be worked through to be able to get to have some common goals and so you can reach, that common goal of retirement and what that vision looks like for each of you and, really establishing some common ground. So yeah, that has helped me. That's something that will never go away. I think it helps my clients too.
I know it helps your clients. I've sat in on many, many meetings and you can feel the tension between them. And the more and more you talk to them, the more and more they come together. And I think that that's a real positive thing that you're able to see that and understand that and work through that. And, another thing I want to talk about is people don't really like financial advisors. They don't like insurance people either. And I didn't come into this industry lightly. I mean, I did a lot of thinking about it and a lot of soul searching. And I thought, I want to work hard to not have that stereotype of the insurance person that is just out to get you into a product that makes them a lot of money. And I know you work the same way. And I really kind of watched you and I thought, that's how I want to be. I want to be the opposite of what people perceive, what they may perceive. And I think you do a really good job of that. You're very compassionate. You're very understanding. You like to take things very slowly at their pace. And some people, I'm sure, are like, let's get this done. And other people are like, this is going to take me a long time. And so I think you break that stereotype. And it's an unfortunate stereotype, but it's out there. And I think you do a really good job of breaking that and showing people at how compassionate you are. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Appreciate
that. Of course, it's the truth. So let's talk a little bit about some trends. Oh, go ahead.
Just comment on that. I mean, I think that when I was making a transition into this field, or prior to that, a number of years ago, my mentor, John, well, first and foremost, I told him I wasn't interested because I wasn't salesy. I didn't understand. it wasn't my training, and I had my own personal experiences that I didn't care for, and I just didn't think that I could do that work. And he just said to me, he knew I was a therapist. He said, "You always told me that the relationship was the tool of your work. You couldn't take somebody where they needed to be if the relationship wasn't strong." And I thought about that, and I was like, you know what, I can vision that in relation to this field, in terms of building relationships and doing things based on a relationship, not based on transactions. And he told me that too. And he said, if you follow, your, what you've been doing and do that here, you'll be successful. And it's worked out well for everybody.
And I have seen over the years that you treat everybody the same, whether they have $100 to invest. And we've talked about that. There are people out there are kids out there are adults out there that might only have $100 to start out with. And you treat them with the same kindness and respect as someone who perhaps has been saving for a long time and now are retiring and don't really know what to do. So it isn't based on a transaction. It's based on a relationship. And that's what I think makes you unique. So
Thank you.
yes, of course. So let's talk a little bit about trends right now. Not specifically, but we're all very in tune with how the market is going up and down and sideways, and it's very concerning. What do you see when people are coming in? What are you hearing them talking about? Just on a high level, what do you hear?
Well, in terms of today's environment, is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm,
A lot
mm-hmm.
of fear.
Yeah,
There's a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, and reasonably so as well. I mean,
yeah.
it's not an easy thing, whether it's for me as an advisor or for you as an account holder, to sit and watch your values drop on a daily or monthly basis. It's disconcerting. It's scary. And then you may hear something that somebody says, or you read something and it promotes a little bit more fear, and you can be more concerned. I think the thing that I try to do with, for myself personally, I start there, and then also my clients, is that, what was our goals when we met? What are our goals and objectives? And what is our risk tolerance? What is our time horizon in terms of, for our investing? You know, and it's easy to kind of sit down and say, well, my time horizon, I'm not going to retire for another 10 years or 12 years or 15 years. I'd like some moderate growth in my portfolio. And that's great and everything. And you can, set up your risk profile, but it's hard to stick to that profile in times like now, because it feels like it's never going to get better, you know. And I don't have a crystal ball, and it doesn't mean that my clients' count values don't drop either. They do. But what do we have to remember? Really, if we look at things from a historical perspective, things do improve.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we try to stay with the plan. I mean, that's the best thing to do, is have a plan. If you're working with an advisor, have a plan, stick to the plan. And if your goals are more shorter term, then you know what, things should be set up in a manner for yourself that to plan for times like this. You're going to be needing funds relatively short period of time, then there should be a bucket of money that is there and available, so you don't have to sell in an environment like this. So those are the types of things that we really need to consider when we're setting up, a plan based on, your goals and objectives.
Yeah, and I think that without going deep into details, when I'm talking to folks over age 65 and they're talking about, oh, I can't retire because the market is doing it, and I think to myself, is that really the best place for you? Perhaps you should talk to somebody who can help you with that. And that kind of gets into the next thing I want to talk about is Why do you think it's important to work with someone like yourself versus doing this on my own? Maybe I dabble in it or I read a lot about it, or I'm a pretty proud person. I'm pretty smart. I think I can do this on my own. Why do you think it's important that they work with someone like you versus trying to do it all on their own?
Wow, that's a tough one. I mean, I, well, first and foremost, there's people out there that do a pretty good job on their own.
Mhm.
They do. They're well read. They know how to invest. They know what you're looking for. They know the balancing portfolio and things like that. But there are a lot of folks that that don't either. And it's kind of like I give the analogy. I go to the doctor because I'm not an expert in medicine, and I need guidance, and I trust my doctor to provide that guidance to me, and I follow that. you know and sometimes people are in a position where you know they're not a manager of investments. They don't know a lot about it, so it could be useful to have somebody that you can go to, and you obviously have to trust them and develop a relationship and see if it's the right fit for you, that can help you with your short-term, long-term plans, whether it's investing or choosing the right insurance product for them or long-term care product or whatever the case may be. There's also things that come up too, that in relation to changes in law, and changes, like the Secure Act went into place. There was 92 provisions in that act, and a lot of folks aren't aware that there's some new things that are being presented and that we need to be aware of. So,
Mhm.
an advisor could be useful in that type of way as well.
And I use the analogies very similar to what you do. I can look up on YouTube at how to change my tire on my car, right? But should I really do something with doing an engine overhaul? Should I really be doing that on my own? So I'm going to ask the experts in that. And so I think that that's important too, to find somebody that you're comfortable with, because like you said, there's a lot of changes that somebody who's dabbling in it might not understand. I want to ask you, what about the folks that are suddenly thrust into a situation that they didn't plan for? For example, we're going along here and all of a sudden now my spouse died and they did everything. Or now I don't know what to do and I'm getting all of these mixed messages. Do you deal with folks like that are suddenly thrust into a situation that they weren't anticipating and now they don't know what to do and they don't know who to trust?
Well, certainly. I mean, I have a broad practice, and what I mean by that is age-wise. I have folks that are a variety of ages in my practice. I do have a large contingent of folks that are older adults, and there are circumstances. And I also have had referrals from like estate planning attorneys and so forth, because like for instance, one spouse was the primary person that managed the investments and paid the bills and things like that. And that's kind of how things are in my house, right? There's some
Right.
things that my wife handles that I don't, and there's things that I handle that she doesn't. But if something, when something happens to that person that handles those types of things, it can be pretty darn scary to the person that doesn't. What do I do? Where do I start? I don't know how to manage this money. And also the other question that comes up, and this has happened a number of times, like one person develops, an illness, dementia, Alzheimer's, and they cannot do what they used to do, and the other person doesn't. And then they have fear, now I need supports for my spouse, and it's going to cost them money to have in-home care, or go to a memory care facility or something like that, and they don't have long-term care insurance, and now they got to pay for it out of their own pocket, right? And then there's always a question: do we have enough to do that? Is this money going to last, and how do we make this money last? Or depending on the circumstance. I've worked with a number of cases like that. Um, where and I'm used to working with folks like that. So it's been at least my clients have told me that it's been a relief to have somebody that has helped them walk through things one step at a time in relation to a transition like that. That has also happened with folks that get divorced, and they're a situation where now they're splitting assets, and one person, you know, knows about finances well, the other person may not. It can be helpful to them, to have somebody that can provide that type of guidance, like a financial advisor. One of the things I do say is that in those circumstances, don't rush. Take your time, think things through. Everybody, sometimes people, when they feel anxious, they got to get it done as fast as possible. It's not necessarily the case. You know, you take it one step at a time.
Yeah, and that can be overwhelming too, because like you said, you want to get it done quickly. I want to circle back to long-term care, and I hear this a lot with Medicare folks, is they're surprised that Medicare doesn't take care of them long-term care. So what I mean by long-term care is maybe living in a nursing home or a over age 65 facility or an Alzheimer's wing, dementia wing of a long-term care. So they're surprised to hear, you mean Medicare's not going to pay for that? I have to pay for that? And I know it can range between $4,000 and $10,000 a month. So talk a little bit about that. And I think you did, is how do people come, when they come to you, they're scared and they need to figure out, how am I going to take care of my spouse and how am I going to afford to do that?
Well, unfortunately, sometimes, Debbie, it depends on the age of the folks that I'm working with. I mean, if somebody comes in and they're a client and you know, they're an older adult already, and it may be cost prohibitive to, purchase a plan at that point in time, or there may be medical issues that, that
Right.
don't allow you to do that. One of the things that I always encourage folks to do is always explore, always educate yourself on what's available out there. There is still some traditional long-term care insurance policies. There are life insurance policies that have long-term care benefits. Now there are annuities that have long-term care benefits. Um, you know, Sometimes somebody hears from their neighbor, "Oh, this was too expensive." Well, that may be true for them, but it may not be true for you. First and foremost, educate. Doesn't mean you're going to make a purchase or whatever, but at least you know for yourself in your own particular situation what the circumstances are. Um, One of the things I do want to say is that, like my wife and I purchased a long-term care insurance program when we were in our, I think, mid 40s. So we were able to purchase at a lower price. Um, and now we're going to have that in place when we retire. If you have the opportunity to do that, to explore that earlier than later, that would be wise to do. I mean, that way you know what's available, whether it's affordable to you or not. And actually, if you're in good health, you can actually purchase those programs cheaper than waiting. Um, but I'll be first to tell somebody that, if we're, you know, we're older adult or whatever the case may be, if it's cost prohibitive, I'd be saying, you know what, you can't do that. There's some incentives out there. There's the partnership program that a lot of states are adopting now in relation to long-term care insurance. So basically what that means is that if you purchase a long-term care insurance policy and its benefits are $300,000, that means $300,000 of your assets will be protected from a Medicaid spend down. So that's basically the state's incentive to say, hey, go out, and protect yourself, because Medicare is not going to cover for long-term care. Your health plan is not going to cover it. You're going to have to take money out of your pocket anyway, you know. purchase a program to do that, if it makes sense to do for that particular individual or couple.
And long-term care doesn't necessarily mean living at a facility. Long-term care might mean I'm still living at my home, but I need help, or my spouse needs help. So maybe I need somebody to come in 4 or 5 hours a day. They're shocked to find out that Medicare will not cover that. That's all private pay. That comes out of your pocket. And that can be a real scary thing when they find out how much that really cost to have that care at home. And so, yeah.
Yeah, if it's custodial care in any manner, like private duty, private duty is support in the home, that's going to be something you're going to have to pay for yourself. If it's skilled care, PT, OT, skilled nursing care, Medicare is going to cover that for a period of time. It's not going to be indefinite, but for a period of time. But if it becomes custodial, somebody needs help with, bathing, or, even standby assistance in terms of getting dressed, or general light housekeeping, transportation, those are the types of things you're going to pay for yourself.
Yeah. So like if you need physical therapy in the home, Medicare will tend to pay for that on a limited basis, but they're not going to pay for just general care that you need to be able to take care of yourself or help with your spouse. So yeah, another good reason to plan early. But if we haven't planned early, is there still help? Is there still hope for those of us that maybe we didn't really plan early enough?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think what you need to do is take a step back and look at your asset situation. I mean, some folks have the pleasure of having plenty of assets and can self-fund. They can take care of a long-term care support, whether that's in-home or assisted living or so forth down the road. But there are some folks that unfortunately that would not be the case. And, you're looking at, or, somewhere down the road, maybe applying for Medicaid, and trying to get on the Medicaid waiver program for in-home assistance, or nursing facility down the road. But I think if you have a question about it, you find a professional that you can sit down with and talk with, and just so you know what your options are, in terms of where you're at currently, what programs are out there, what would work, what would not work.
And I think too is that it's never a bad idea to get a second opinion. I mean, I see that all the time in the Medicare world, where they might get an opinion from their primary care physician, but they want a second opinion from a cardiologist. And so maybe we have a financial advisor, or maybe we don't. So is it okay if people call you if they're just looking for a second opinion?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's not uncommon. The thing is that not everybody in my field does everything, right? They don't, some folks, as an financial advisor or, investment advisor, they want to manage money. They want that as just the sole thing they do. That's one of the things I do, but also I'm pretty well versed in insurance. And I think that is a critical part of a financial plan. When you're setting up a financial plan, rule number one is reduce your risk, and so that's why we have insurance programs to help us do that. So, somebody may have an excellent advisor, but they don't deal with these types of things. I get that where folks call me and talk to me about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so don't be afraid of a second opinion. And you are really very harmless. So I think people can come to you and feel comfortable. That is another episode of Simply Medicare. I'm your host, Debbie Strout, and we will look forward to chatting soon. If you've enjoyed this edition of Simply Medicare podcast and you don't want to miss any future episodes, please make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Please also leave comments and offer feedback so we can make this podcast the best it can be for you. If you need assistance with your Medicare sign-up or you just have general Medicare questions, make sure to reach out to me at 248-227-0347. You can also reach me online at MichiganMedicareSpecialist.com or through my email at Debbie@MichiganMedicareSpecialist.com. I really look forward to working with you soon.